Last summer, the Labour Party suffered huge losses in the European elections, losing MEPs across the country as voters rejected its Brexit policy. The party's policy at the time said a so-called people's vote should only be an option to stop a bad Tory Brexit or a no-deal departure from the EU. But in an attempt to play to both Remain and Leave voters, the European elections saw disastrous results for the party's then leader Jeremy Corbyn and Labour. Shadow Brexit Secretary at the time, Mr. Starmer came under scrutiny after the electoral humiliation, including from members of his own shadow cabinet. Then Shadow Foreign Secretary Emily Thornberry blamed the Labour defeat on the party's Brexit policy, calling for a more Remain-leaning approach. In the aftermath of the European elections, she said on the BBC, "These are really bad results for Labour. I think we're going to get a kicking. We went into an election where the most important issue was what was our view on leaving the European Union, and we were not clear about it. We were not clear on the one single thing that people wanted to hear. We should have said quite simply that any deal that comes out of this government should be put to a confirmatory referendum and that Remain should be on the ballot paper and that Labour would campaign to Remain. That's what we should have done, and I think that it's very unfortunate that after these elections we will have to look very carefully at why we got this result. Members of the National Executive Committee, who made the decision on policy, will need to be listening to the membership and learning from that." She added, "We will need to look again at our policy in relation to this and make sure we are clearer. We have done everything we can to try to get a decent policy on leaving the European Union, but I think that things have moved on." Mr. Starmer and the party moved on to pursue a more Remain-friendly policy in the 2019 general election last December, but the results were equally damning. In an interview with Piers Morgan on Good Morning Britain before the election, Mr. Starmer admitted that voting to invoke Article 50 in 2017 was difficult. He said, "Having campaigned myself hard for Remain and the Labour Party having done that, when the result came in we accepted the result and we triggered Article 50. That was very difficult for us as a party and for me personally, but it was the right thing to do. A lot of water has gone under the bridge now. There isn't a deal that can be supported." Labour went on to record its worst electoral performance since 1935, as Prime Minister Boris Johnson secured the Conservative Party an 80-seat majority, having promised throughout the campaign to get Brexit done. He then took the UK out of the EU on January 31 with a withdrawal agreement.